Today we cancel, once again, CNN. This time for a segment on the Kyle Rittenhouse case featuring one Mr. Jeffrey Toobin. As you recall, though you surely wish you did not recall, Toobin, CNN legal analyst, gained international notoriety last year when he was caught badgering the witness during a Zoom meeting with his coworkers. Toobin pulled his tube out, you might say. He tried to put it gently, get a hold of himself during this meeting. He's always been a self-congratulatory type, so he decided to give himself a hand, so to speak. And while he was engaged in this DIY project, his colleagues looked on in unimaginable shock and horror. Now, for most humans on Earth, handling your situation in a work setting in full view of other employees would lead not only to immediate termination, but it would likely foreclose all future possibilities of employment. You could maybe get a job as assistant manager at your local sex shop. I don't know. Though on second thought, you certainly could not be trusted in that setting either. So really, that would be it for you. You may never find gainful employment ever again. But Jeffrey Toobin works in corporate media, and the rules are different there. Which means that, in this case, he was back on the beat with CNN within just a few months. CNN has mostly not seen it necessary to justify its decision to employ and provide a public platform to a man who masturbated during a work meeting. To the extent that they've bothered to explain it, the rationale seems to be that Toobin's behavior was an accident. Now, he's the real victim here, you see. He didn't know that his camera was on during the Zoom call. He thought he was debugging a hard drive in the privacy of his own home. And it may indeed be true that he didn't know the camera was on. But the act itself was not an accident. Granted, I was not on the call, which is why I still have eyes and I haven't gouged them out. But I still feel safe assuming that Toobin didn't slip and fall and accidentally masturbate. No, he quite intentionally decided to perform that act during a work meeting while watching his coworkers. The only thing he didn't intend was for them to know that he was doing it. I fail to see how that makes this any better. I mean, if there's a guy on public transportation sitting in the back of the bus masturbating, hoping no one sees it, and someone does, can he say to the cop, well, I didn't mean for anyone to know that I was doing it? Especially because we can assume here, as always is the case in these kinds of situations, that when a pervert is caught in the act for the first time, he was only caught for the first time. It's not, however, his first time at the rodeo. And yet he's back on the air, which leads us finally to this segment, and let's all watch cautiously.
Jeffrey, Two thoughts. One, what kind of idiot 17-year-old gets a giant gun and goes to a riot? He has no license. He has no training. He thinks he's going to scrub graffiti off with his AR-15. I mean, the stupidity of this is like, what could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot went wrong. The good news for Kyle Rittenhouse is that he's not on trial for being an idiot. He's on trial for homicide. Right. And in that respect, I mostly agree with Joey that this is a tough case for the prosecution because it does seem like he has a plausible case of self-defense. And, you know, if it were illegal to be an idiot, the jails would be even freer, even more crowded than they are now. Homicide's a different matter.
Very bold move by CNN to use a glass table. Also, you have to feel bad for the guy sitting right next to Toobin, as Toobin's kind of waving his hands around like that. I mean, his life must have been flashing before his eyes, which is still better than Toobin flashing before his eyes, I suppose. As for Toobin, he accuses Rittenhouse of being an idiot. Now, just to emphasize here, the man who pleasured himself during a Zoom meeting and forgot to turn the camera off is calling somebody else an idiot. He says it's fortunate for Rittenhouse that, being an idiot isn't illegal. Well, it's fortunate for Toobin that masturbating in front of unwilling spectators isn't illegal. Oh, wait, it is illegal. Just not if you're a member of the favored class. Now, putting his childish analysis of the Rittenhouse case aside, I mean, you can really see why CNN just had to bring the masturbator back on the air, because otherwise they'd be deprived of insightful legal opinions like, that guy's an idiot, LOL. But putting that aside, Jeffrey Toobin really shows us the nature of cancel culture, doesn't he? Jeffrey Toobin shows us quite a lot, actually, way more than we want to see. But the lesson he provides about cancel culture is useful. Cancel culture is, as I've always said, arbitrary by definition. Why is Louis C.K. still banished to the cultural hinterlands, persona non grata, and yet Toobin is on cable news? They did the same thing, but Toobin is arguably worse because he didn't get consent ahead of time. And there have certainly been people who committed far less severe infractions or no infraction, and yet suffer punishments far worse than whatever Toobin suffered, which was really nothing at all. When it comes to workplace sexual harassment specifically, we live in a world now where giving your female coworker a compliment may be sexual harassment. But I mean, in Toobin's case, masturbating in front of her during a work meeting is not sexual harassment. But this is all by design. It's a power move by CNN, really. Cancel culture is arbitrary. It's also left-wing inherently. It was largely invented by the left-wing corporate media. It's their thing. Cancel culture belongs to CNN and its fellow corporate media organizations. It will decide who is canceled and who is not. Jeffrey Toobin is on their team. They happen to like him for whatever reason, and so they will grant him a pass that nobody else on the planet anywhere would be granted. There's no coherent moral philosophy underpinning this. Cancel culture it's not mere left-wing puritanism. It's not even a moral panic. It's a weapon, and they will decide how to wield it. That's why Toobin still has a job, and is probably still invited on Zoom calls. And everybody else on the call just has to make sure that they don't eat lunch beforehand, I guess. That's also why I must say again today that CNN is, of course, canceled. Hey, listen, hit the subscribe button. Do it right now. I demand it. And I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.